Allahu Akbar.
Hayya ala salah.
Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar.
Hayya ala salah.
Islam family.
Islam, Sheik.
First and foremost, I rise giving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the highest of praise and the highest of honors to his holy and divine prophet, Noble Ali. I want to extend those honors to the forerunner, the harbinger, the honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey, who did warn and stir up the nations. I would like to give honors to the Moorish American standard, the red flag with the green five-pointed star in the center, representing the highest principles that are known to man, which is love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. I also acknowledge the United Mercantile Trading Banner, also known as the American flag. I want to give honors to all Moorish Americans, both past, present, and future, who strive to promote this holy and divine movement by way of the Prophet's holy instructions and divine laws. I want to give honors to Temple Number 19, the office of the Grand Governor, Lieutenant Grand Governor, Chief Staff, Admin Staff, and the mighty M19s to keep the peace. And last but certainly not least, I want to give honors to you, the Ills and Bays, and our visitors, our guests in the sacred groves, because when man honors man, he honors our Father God, Allah. Islam?
Islam.
You have to excuse me for a moment. It's a little odd not opening up the meeting officially.
Islam.
So I have to recalibrate it and get my bearings.
Praise Allah.
However, once again, I want to give honors to our Grand Sheik as well as our Grand Governor, Rashid Ibn, and opening up the meeting and giving such a powerful measure on the importance of unity, not just outside of the temple, within the, outside of the Moorish Science Temple of America and our duties, but also within the temple. So everything that we strive to do as Moorish Americans, we have to remember that it starts from within. Our Prophet gives us the instructions. Is one of the few pages when you open up our Moorish Holy Quran is know thyself and thy Father God Allah. So that means that's a message that comes from within.
That's right.
From within you go without, and then you expand. So we have to make sure that we have unity and we have ourselves centered individually. And then again, that comes out in recognizing and loving and appreciating and trusting each other to move forward for this movement, and then bring that trust and that unity outside so we can be the message that we bring. Islam. We had I'm not going to want to save mine for last, but before I do it, my experience within Temple 11 for last, but I will give a brief introduction. As the Grand Governor said, Grand Sheik said that January 8th, this past Tuesday, was our Prophet's solar return, his birthright, his birthday. That was the day on which he was born, 1886, North Carolina. And this was when Allah loved the world and loved the Asiatics living in America, that he sent his spirit once again.
That's what he did.
In the flesh.
Demonstrate.
To redeem and resurrect the so-called Negroes living in America. And reminded them that they were not Negro, black, and colored.
No, we're not.
Returned to them their divine creed and their nationality. Allah did that.
That's right.
All right? So we want to recognize and give honors to the spirit of Allah in the vessel of Noble Ali. We want to give high honors to that man, that angel, that thought of Allah manifested in the human flesh. That angel that was sent to bring the message to the four corners of the world, to all nations. To bring the everlasting gospel, the saving power that comes by way of Allah through our ancient foremothers and our forefathers. We, on a Tuesday, that day, we want to recognize that man, that brother, our prophet, and we should not be ashamed with us being Muslims, with us being Muslims born in America. We shouldn't be ashamed to say that we have a prophet that was given to us by Allah. But that's, this whole month, if you will, we should be observing the prophet and giving honors to the prophet and giving the highest of praise to Allah. I want to say this one thing. I promise you, I'm gonna go on. But when you think about when you think about the presence of Allah and the spirit of Allah within you, you know, it should move you.
Absolutely.
You know, that's that true meaning of knowing thyself and thy Father God, Allah, knowing that everything that goes on in this entire world, all of the blessings that has been received, that spirit is within you. I was driving home yesterday at night, at the twilight, at Isha, if you will, and I saw the moon. And I was like, Alhamdulillah. Right. You know what I mean? And just knowing that is Allah. See, it was a waxing moon, if it wasn't that. Praise Allah. I just want to make sure I got that, you know. Yeah.
Same one appeared when he was
the same one appeared.
That's right. When he was born.
Indeed. So when that is the same moon. If you happen to know, that's not the same moon part. So that is the same moon that was present when our prophet Noble Ali was born. But not just that. When we as Moorish Americans, we say that we cannot see Allah, but the nearest place to meet Him is within the heart. So we do not worship, we do not revere, we do not fear a spook God.
That's right.
We revere, we give high praises to a deity that is within and it's outside of us.
Islam.
That is the true example of unity. All of those things. And when we talk about how, you know, we outside of the quote unquote conscious community, we want to quote unquote debate or question the fact that Allah doesn't exist. Try breathing.
Come on, Sheik.
Because when we think about this concept of how everything is in tune with who we are, that is the divine. Don't get spooked by the word divine. Divine is it just means the highest form of nature.
That's right.
So when we realize that we are a part of this higher form of nature, that is Allah. When we realize is that this higher form of nature found itself and wanted to concentrate, wanted to demonstrate its force, its power into one human being to spread love to a group of people that thought they didn't have any love. That is a blessing from Allah. Truly a blessing from Allah. So, anyway, going to Philadelphia and fellowshipping or joining our family in Temple 11 for fellowship was a wonderful experience. And I had the privilege, the honor, if you will, even for me, if it was for a short period, to experience the love that Allah has bestowed upon or has granted the members of Temple 11. When you walk in, regardless of what building they're in,
Come on, Sheik. Come on.
when you walk into the building, you feel that aura of love.
Yes. Praise Allah.
It emits, because you see the babies running around.
Everywhere.
You see unity amongst families. You see families. You see generations. You see generations of Moorish American Muslims working together towards this Moorish Divine and National movement. And the only thing that you can say is praise Allah.
Praise Allah.
Because that in itself is an example of the might of Allah. When you come in and you come in, how many of us have came into a building and as soon as you come into the building you feel that energy, you feel that energy almost drain you.
That's right.
But you know that there's a difference, and even it may be a person. How many times have you seen a person come into a building or come into a room and it's like they drain the energy from it? All right? But then you know you come into, and maybe even yourself, when you walk into a building, when you walk into a room, the room seems to lighten up because they feel your aura, they feel your spirit, they feel your energy. They know it's on high. That's the experience that I get coming to Temple 11. That is the experience that I get coming to Temple number 19, coming to the Moorish Science Temple of America. I feel that spirit on high. But that spirit in particular was demonstrated immaculately with Temple 11. From the chairman, Brother T. Hopkins-Bey,
Praise Allah.
the mother love
Praise
Hopkins-Bey,
Allah. That's right.
and their Grand Sheik A. Hopkins-Bey,
That's right.
and his wonderful wife.
Islam.
They were all demonstrating. If they didn't demonstrate anything else within that temple, within that gathering of Temple 11, on the Prophet's birthright celebration, it was love. Islam family.
Islam.
So that's my brief testimony. I might come back and say a little bit more, but as we were at the ceremony, and they were presenting awards. One particular award had came up, if you will, and this was an award. Grand Governor, I ask that you step forward.
Oh, praise Allah.
So, in the Moorish Science Temple of America, we want to give honors to those that labor day and night. Sometimes they lose sleep. Sometimes in certain cases they may lose their sanity. But nonetheless, it is not in vain. And for those Moorish Americans who genuinely promote the interests of the Prophet, promote the interests of this Moorish divine and national movement, as all people, as members, as citizens, they should be honored.
It's honored.
So, our Grand Governor, because he was laboring, our Grand Sheik, because he was laboring to assure that the infrastructure of Temple number 19, that the works of the Moorish Americans in Temple number 19 were for naught, he had to sacrifice coming up to Philadelphia to fellowship. But again, that was not in vain, because the noble Grand Sheik, or the family of the Hopkins-Bey and Temple 11 in Philadelphia, saw it fit to honor our Grand Sheik, our Grand Governor, Brother Haru Ranisi Il, with an award. Let me read it. The Moorish Science Temple of America Entrepreneurial Excellence Award.
Islam.
Islam family.
Islam.
And this is presented to our Grand Sheik, to our Grand Governor, for the labors in extending the faith of our Prophet and being a missionary to the Prophet of Ali in America. Islam?
Islam.
And I just want to read this. It says, again, Allah, Salvation, Unity. It says, Moorish Science Temple of America Entrepreneur Excellence Award presented to Brother Haru Ranisi Il. This award is noteworthy Moorish American entrepreneurs whose business contributions inspire others, thus setting an example for aspiring Moorish American entrepreneurs to be successful. On this day, which was Tuesday, January 8th, 2019. And this was signed by Grand Sheik A. Hopkins-Bey.
Islam.
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 Everybody, you can give them a round of applause.
Islam.
Takbir!
Allahu Akbar.
Takbir!
Allahu Akbar.
Takbir!
Allahu Akbar.
Alhamdulillah. So, I saw it fitting that that we present this to you as your brother, as your student. I love you, and I appreciate the works that you did, and we all appreciate the works, the members and the guests that you've done on behalf of not just Temple number 19, but the organization, the institution of the Moorish Science Temple of America. It is not forgotten, it is remembered, it is honored, and I want to present this to you,
Islam.
brother.
Islam.
Gratitude.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you. Praise
Islam.
Allah.
Thank you very much. Praise Allah.
Islam.
Islam, Moors.
Let me see.
Islam.
Islam family.
Islam.
So, again, this movement, we're here to raise up our people. We're here to help them to understand the spirit of excellence within themselves. Because if they don't understand that they themselves are worth all the honors that are needed in the good works, then we are not promoting anything that is of any use. Our prophet asked us in the catechism, in the 101s, how did the prophet begin to uplift the Moorish American? By teaching them to be themselves. And that in itself is the answer. Because you cannot be a slave. You cannot be a descendant of a slave. You can be a Moorish American. So our prophet Noble Drew Ali began to uplift you by teaching who you are. And that in itself, it goes beyond the name of Moorish American. It's excellence. It's honorable. It's trustworthy. Islam? So, I digress. As the Grand Governor had mentioned when I came in earlier, is that we in the Moorish Science Temple of America, we cannot afford to be puffed up in our own conceits. We cannot afford to be brash or haughty or demonstrate hubris when it comes to the salvation of our people. I will go so far as to even pose the question, in the Moorish Science Temple of America, is our responsibility or our duty, which one is worth more? Is it saving lives, or is it accumulating members? You know, so, and that's not to discredit the Moorish Science Temple of America. I, being a member of the Moorish Science Temple of America and a living testimony for what it's done for me, I know that it is the sure salvation of all Asiatics living in America.
Islam.
But with that being said, we have to take in consideration that the best ally itself could be very well just a friend. Because our prophet Noble Drew Ali had sympathizers as well as members that were a part of his Moorish Divine and National Movement. So we have to remember that we as members of the Moorish Science Temple of America have to keep that in the back of our mind, that even if we want to get these seats filled so we can inform them of the order of the day, which is nationality. If people come and fill in these seats and participate, and even if they don't quote unquote proclaim the nationality or receive a membership card, if they're striving when they separate into the world, when they leave off the shores of salvation to adapt and foster this lifestyle, who are we to try to drive home them wearing a fez or a turban? You know, there's no, our Quran of Mecca says there's no compulsion within religion. So we have to remember that and keep that in our minds. So we have guests, we have honorable visitors that come through and they hear the words of a prophet, and I would take it that if anything, they take one word or one phrase or one lesson and they attempt to apply it to their daily lives. At least they know that this organization carries the spirit of love. So this is something that we as Moorish Americans should always keep in the back of my mind, because we are to promote this Moorish Divine and National Movement to the best of our ability.
That's right.
Our prophet said that we are in an electrified age. We are in a new era of time. All right. So we, being one of the progenitors of what some would consider the quote-unquote conscious community, it has expanded from there. It has evolved. But we in the Moorish Science Temple of America, this Moorish Divine and National Movement, we're still standing. We are part of this foundation that has been developed within the Asiatic community. Within the Asiatics living in America, we are still here. So we still, it is our responsibility to, if not anything else, play an integral part in our progress of Asiatics living in America. What is the cost of unity? I want to read real quick as tradition conducting our Moorish American, or our Holy Day meetings rather, confirming ourselves to the words of our prophet, I want to read in part chapter 26, Holy Instructions of Unity, and I will also be reading chapter 27, the holy unity of the rich and the poor. And again, I'll be reading it in part. And it reads, chapter 26. Part stuff. Let me hear Islam. Everybody gets to chapter 26.
Islam.
Y'all sound like y'all tired. Let me hear another Islam.
That's right.
Islam.
Praise Allah. And it reads, the gifts of the understanding are the treasures of Allah, and He appointed to every one his portion, in what measure seemeth good unto himself. So right out the gate, he's telling us that each and every one of us as individuals don't have all the knowledge. Mm-hmm. So it would make sense to link up with each other. We as Asiatics, I'm not just going to quote unquote pick on the quote unquote conscious community. We as Asiatics think that we know everything, that we have all the answers. Because it's just not so. So it will behoove us to network and to establish a circle of those of like mind so we can learn from one another. Right? Because each and every one of us has a portion, the measure that seemeth good to himself. Mm. All right? And that is the one of the important parts of building a community. Can you build a community with just one person? Because everybody, if the brother knew how to build a home and to build a car and to paint a home and to have the electricity, he'll be tired. But Allah had given us a blessing. He said, I'm not going to give all this information to you, brother. I'm going to give this sister the ability to fix the car. I'm going to give this brother the ability to be an electrician, so on and so forth. So you all don't have a choice but to learn from each other. All of us carry the spirit and a part of Allah. And to keep it in a practical sense, we are humans having a godly experience. There's a saying within the quote-unquote the Sunni Islamic community called Allahu Alam. Okay, Allah knows everything, if you will. And then we also have part itself. We have above or in our more science temple of America, divine constitution and bylaws, we have a representation of Allah, that eye, the all-seeing eye, if you will. But the question that you have to think to yourself is how, on this plane of manifest, is he able to know all, and is he able to see all? He's doing that by way of you. How is Allah able to do these things and to understand and to comprehend? And I can only give you this demonstration from my finite mind, but I'm saying it in a way, in a practical way that you all can understand how this thing works. Because we need each other. No man lives unto himself. He's bound by cords to every living thing. So in order for that to happen, we must learn and teach each other. Hath he endowed, we're on lesson 2, or instruction 2, hath he endowed thee with wisdom? He enlightened thy mind with the knowledge of truth, communicated to the ignorant for their instruction, communicated to the wise for thine own improvement. Never think, as many times as the sheiks or any brothers or sister may come up to the rostrum, that we may be repeating things because it may be a reason for thine own improvement. I'm going to jump over to chapter 27 and read a few lines or a few instructions from there. Chapter 27, the holy unity of the rich and poor. So that is the age-old conflict between the haves and the have-nots. Classism. All right, there's a difference between classism and order. All right, and we in the Moorish Science Temple of America seek to establish order. All right, and within that order, you're going to have different tiers. But Allah doesn't look at the stations of men. He look at the heart. All right, and you will be judged by Allah by how well you represent that station.
Islam.
But you're not going to be, Allah is not going to look upon you as greater than the other just because you hold a quote-unquote higher station of that order.
That's right.
It reads, verse 1, the man whom Allah hath given riches and blessed with a mind to employ them all right is peculiarly favored and highly distinguished.
Islam.
Instruction 2, he looketh on his wealth with pleasure because it afford him the means to do good.
Islam.
So I want to backtrack when we look at this. All right. So there's a reason why I read both of these side by side, if you will, because we hear, going back to chapter 26, the gifts of understanding are the treasures of Allah. But then our prophet goes back and says, the man whom Allah hath given riches and blessed with a mind to employ them aright is peculiarly favored and highly distinguished because he looked upon his wealth with pleasure because it afforded him the means to do good.
Right.
What are you saying, Chairman? I'm saying that your knowledge and your wisdom, even though they are considered treasures by way of Allah, it afforded you the means to do good. Y'all understand what I'm saying?
Islam.
So we are not giving you this treasure. We are not giving you these pearls of wisdom, etc., etc., for you to flaunt, for you to sound like the deepest person in the room. We're giving you this wisdom, this knowledge, for you to apply it and to help others.
Islam.
That's the reason why you have your trade. That's the reason why you have your purpose. All right. He protecteth the poor. We're on 3, chapter 27. He protecteth the poor that are injured. He suffereth not the mighty to oppress the weak. All right. He seeketh out objects of compassion. He inquireth into their wants. He relieveth them with judgments and without ostentation. He assisteth and rewardeth merit. He encouraged the ingenuity and liberally promoteth every useful design. All right. We go on to 6. He carrieth his own great works. His country is enriched, and the labor is employed. He formeth new schemes, and the arts receive improvement. All right. I'm not going to read this whole chapter, but I want you to get the idea of what is being presented to you. This is, in part, if anything, how the lion and the lamb can lie together in yonder hills.
Yeah.
Because it is your responsibility, if you have, to support those who have not. This is the degree of unity. We're not just talking about this hand press to signify stability in the rope of Allah, but it is also used to pull your fellow man, your fellow woman up.
That's right.
Is to raise them up. We have talked about resurrection. This is the degree of Jesus. What is the cost of unity? So I want you all to, when we think about unity, as our sister secretary had said so eloquently, it is not a daunting task. It may be challenging, but it's only challenging because we allow it to be. We have our own inhibitions and our own bones of contention about each other that hinder our progress. But there's nothing new under the sun. You see, our prophet told us to study our foremothers and our forefathers, and we see by design that they've gone through the same thing. So I want you all to research 2 things. I'm just going to give you 2 things. I want you to research China, and I want you to research the Confederacy of the Iroquois. And I want you to see and observe what they went through to unite. I'm gonna give you a couple of examples. All right. So interestingly enough, the cusp of the uniting of China went on during the Warring States, the spring and the autumn periods. You had dynasties that wanted to have their own province. They didn't want to be a united China. But you have a ruler, if you will, by the name of Qin. It may be pronounced to you, or you may see it as Qin, but it's pronounced Qin, as in Qi, or as some would say, as in China. Right? This man had a vision, a uniting of China. How many of y'all have seen, I may have mentioned this before, how many of y'all have seen the movie Hero with Jet Li? All right, that movie is loosely based on the uniting of China. Because, again, what you have, when you think of different rulerships and coming together as one, it's unfortunate that the rulers only think of giving up their station, giving up their say or their rule. And it's very interesting when we think of ourselves as citizens. All right, there's a in chapter 29, Magistrate and Subject, and I'll paraphrase. It says that a ruler that the subjects has raised one up as a ruler. I can't remember the literature where it actually came from. Maybe you can help me to recall the memory. But it says when we talk about the statesman or the ruler, it says that the subjects or the citizens, they sacrifice a portion of their freedom to be protected. All right. So that in itself, you have to develop a mindset to know that, okay, I'm giving a portion of quote unquote my sovereignty. All right, and that's the word that trembles the sheath of Allah, or that trembles the organization of the Moorish Science Temple of America, is that word sovereignty. Well, we know that a sovereign is only a collective idea. There's no such thing as a singular sovereign. Why is that? Because when you are, as a community, and you as a citizen, you as a member, you give up a portion of that for the collective whole. So that's what we have to remember. We have to remember the cost of unity, or the price of unity, if you will, is understanding the bigger purpose. And that's what the people of China, they eventually had to understand. They had to go back and forth. They had to have these wars. They went through different periods and had to determine what was their way of worship, of spirituality, so on and so forth. You know how many schools of thoughts there are in Japan? Not Japan, in China? There's like 100+ schools of thoughts. All right, in other words, there's so many philosophies on how one lived their lives. But you have this brother right here, this prophet that took those schools of thoughts, and to the best of his ability, merged them together.
What's that prophet's name?
The prophet's name is Confucius, Kung Fu Tzu. All right, and then his intellects, his philosophies, his teaching ended up being among the several schools of thoughts. But nonetheless, you have a prophet that came to them, that came amongst them when they were warring. And then you had a precept to that. You may have heard of the brother. Precept of that. All right. And he said that I'm paraphrasing, that the last thing we should be resorting to is physical violence. All right. We should not be looking to spill the blood of another Chinaman. All right, we should be as diplomatic and as civil as possible when dealing with each other, because when when the outsider, when the enemy sees a chink in the armor, when they see separation, they're going to use that against us. And you see that even to this day. See, again, we have to understand what is the overall goal. What are we looking to do? What is the purpose of the Moorish Science Temple of America? To uplift fallen humanity. All right? What is the purpose of the Moorish Science Temple of America? To uplift fallen humanity. I want everybody to say it with me. What is the purpose of the Moorish Science Temple of America?
To uplift fallen humanity.
All right? So when we keep that in mind, these little spats, these debates, they're for naught. Because if I go out and I talk to a brother about the Moorish Science Temple of America, and in turn he wants to exchange to me the information about Hebrew Israelites, or information about him being part of Ifa, or him part of the Meta Netra, etc., etc., it should not be a back and forth who has the better school of thought. It should be, how can we take those two portions and uplift each other? Because for those who know, we all know that that's a part of this Moorish Divine and National Movement, or as some would say today, it's all Moorish science. We should know better. That's why our prophet has given us the measures and the quote-unquote degrees that we have, so we'll be able to go in these schools of thoughts, and we can show them, or we can demonstrate to them what it means to take whatever principles and schools of thought you have and apply it to your well-being, to apply it to your status, and vice versa. Because there are things within other communities that can make our organization stronger.
That's right.
But we have to be humble enough to accept that. There was a sister that I spoken with earlier today, and I told her that we were that we had a meeting, or that we went to Philly and we celebrated our prophet's birthright. And you know the first thing that she said? Y'all didn't go over there and debate, did you? No, we didn't. But what does that tell me? What does that tell us? We should not be the ones in society, or the ones within this community, within the enlightened community, within the community of the incense and the shea butter and the crystals and so on and so forth, to be wanting to debate. We should be the martyr, if anything, to help build this structure. Y'all understand what I'm saying? All right. So also, again, like I said before, research the Iroquois Confederacy. All right. There were 5 initial tribes in New York. You had the Mohawk. You had the Oneida. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly. All right. You had the Onondaga. Part itself. You have the Cayuga, and you have the Sinoa. All right. So you have these 5 tribes that were warring with each other. But if it wasn't for Diganwinda or Hiawatha, that saw that again, this warring, this bloodshed, is not benefiting the land. It's not giving the ancestors any nourishment. Because see, what makes the spirit of the ancestors happy is knowing that we prevail. But when there's bloodshed, when there's unwanted bloodshed, then it's just as worthless as a sacrifice. You get what I'm saying? So, what is the commonality of all of these organizations getting together? And I say it once and I say it again. Teach it to the wise for thine own improvement. We all want better schools. We all want to be. We talk about capitalism as if it's the boogeyman or the big bad wolf. How many of us want our own business? That's capitalism.
That's right.
But it's because we allow people that don't have the best interest in our mind, to describe or define what capitalism is. We don't want it. We say that we just use the word entrepreneurship, which that's a part of it, but that's a part of capitalism. Because we all want a business so we can receive and confer reciprocal helps and mutual obligations. That's the only way you're going to be able to do it. So these are the things that we have to keep in mind. When we get finished, when we separate into the world, some of us are going to go to Kroger. Some of us are going to go to the gas station that we don't know, that we don't own. Some of us are going to go eat somewhere that we don't own. But we steady debating. Can we save the debate when we at least get a unified Asiatic nation or an African Union, if you will, in these United States of America? There's a European Union, all right. There's a what's the word? Help me out, Sheik.
African Union.
Well, we already mentioned the African Union, but after World War II, I want to say NATO. It's not NATO.
United Nations.
United Nations. We have a United Nations in Europe, so they got it together. You have all different nations. They get together and they say they're going to discuss the interests of Europe. And we can't discuss whether or not what we want to have in the community. So these are things that we have to consider. We should not have a business in our community that is not benefiting the community. So every business that we have in the community, it should be returning, it should be giving some portion. It should be cleaning up the streets, it should be doing this, it should be doing that. But no, we're too busy trying to determine whether or not that this is a fez or a Tarbush.
Right.
We're too busy arguing over whether or not the Moors or the Muslims were the betrayers of Africa, when we all came from Africa, and whether it was sooner or later. That's another demonstration. I make sure I have to clear this. But again, this is very important, family, and I may sound facetious, but this is a very serious matter. We cannot afford, for the sake of the babies, to have them see us warring with each other over trivial things. Going back to the demonstration of Temple 11, you saw the babies running around carefree, protected. And they came and they saw love. They see love each and every way around them. And again, going back to what our sister Barry Bey had mentioned before, even if there was some issues between or some form of rift, we wouldn't know. Because they hold themselves to the law. If there's an issue, if there's a grievance, they go to the book. They go to that pamphlet. And they demonstrate resolve. There's a couple of things I want to ask, or I want to talk about, and then I'm going to yield the floor to our Grand Governor. We often, as developing citizens, we talk about the quote unquote the First and the Second Amendment. All right, I have the right to talk. I have freedom of speech. I have the right to bear arms. Why? Why do we have the right to do that? As citizens. I preface that, as citizens. Why do we have the right to freedom of speech? Somebody. I want somebody to talk before our Lord and me. Why we got the right to freedom of speech? What is freedom of speech? Nobody want to talk? Okay. Let's say I have a problem with this brother right here. I don't like that he's not wearing a tie. And let's say he was a ruler. Let's say we didn't have freedom of speech. Let's say I wanted to go to you, Brother Joseph, and say, I don't appreciate that you're not wearing a tie. I gotta wear a tie. I'm almost choking, but you get to wear a tie. Because I don't have freedom of speech, and he was the ruler, he can be a despot. He can slay me right where I stand. You have the right to appeal to your ruler, and he has to give you that opportunity to listen. That is it. It's in here. Listens with impertinence. It's in your book. We don't have that quote unquote freedom or the freedom of the press We have that freedom of the press so we can let the world know if something is going wrong in our country, in our nation. So it won't be it won't be filtered again by a despot, by a tyrant. He can just throw that away because it's been done. So we don't have this right to speech or freedom of speech just so we can just be talking out the side of our neck with no consequences. No, let's use what we have. Second one, the right to bear arms. Why do we have the right to bear arms? Nobody wants to talk? All right. I'm picking on you again, Brother Joseph.
Okay.
Let's say, no, I'm not gonna pick on anybody. Seriously, the right to bear arms was given to you because you, as citizens, was the first line of defense for this country. All right. That's why understanding the concepts of a state or these United States Republic is very important because we have the responsibility to defend these shores. And in order for us to defend these shores, we had to make sure that we armed ourselves properly. You look up the term militia when you get a chance. All right? The militia was formed because we didn't, the government itself was the representation of the sovereign. So they were supposed to be as bureaucratic and as diplomatic as they can, doing business, making sure that it was with our interests to do so. But if there was a conflict, they were obligated to call on the militia of the states to give aid. It's supposed to be a reciprocal relationship between the federal and the states. Islam. Yes.
I rise in praise to Allah and high honors to His Prophet and Dwelling. We want to be specific when we utter the term militia. In the Constitution, it specifies a well-regulated
Islam.
militia.
Praise Allah. So as the Grand Sheik said, a well-regulated militia, not rebels.
Islam.
That's not what we have. So again, it's supposed to be fortified in understanding the purpose of their responsibility. Gratitude. So just those two in itself, we're not, this is not to be taken advantage of. We're not to be flaunting our rights and we not know what the purpose of them. This is for our ability to live, to demonstrate love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. All right. But again, in order for us to do that, we have to be unified. We have to be unified as Moorish Americans. We have to be unified as American citizens. All right. So, any questions? All is well? Okay. So, again, family, I encourage you to research all forms, even Africa. As quiet as it's kept, and I have no reason not to brag. You can fact check me if you want. When it comes to Africa, we have no unification until the advent of Islam. And again, you all can fact check me if you want to. But even within Islam, you had those different tribes and nations and communities that saw the benefits of the uniting under the umbrella of Islam. That doesn't mean they still wasn't practicing their traditional beliefs. It still doesn't mean they had their oyas or what have you. But they understood that unification meant that they were able to keep the enemy out. But then we have to remember, as soon as the enemy saw that there was a separation between that unification, that's when the Portuguese came in. That's when the Spaniards came in, etc., etc. That's when the foreign Muslims came in, the pale-skinned Muslims came in. They saw chinks in the armor. Islam family. So.
Allahu Akbar.
حي على الصلاة.
Allahu Akbar.